the whole conversation, and then you just stayed sitting next to each other.
MVP.
Rangers do every day. It's always been that way for me. Always been a get better mentality every day, grow every day, be a better leader every day, be a better quarterback every day. And when that wrench do, I don't plan on missing no payments. So.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to 3 in the Keystone, episode 95. Full team in the building again tonight. Myself, Chris Guest, Al Ryan. Gents, episode 95. I actually have a challenge for you, Chris. My dad was at the house today, and I was talking to him about who we were going to use for this number 95, and he threw an old Eagle at me that I had never heard of, and his words were, Chris will know who it is. And how about that John Bunting? Are you a John Bunting guy?
I know Jim Bunting. Yeah. I don't know about John Bunting, no.
John Bunting, Eagles linebacker from 1972 to 1982.
No, so, I'm embarrassed that I don't forgive my ignorance.
Yeah, so that's who Jeff wanted to go with tonight. I could not go with that, but not a lot of 95s. I went with that NFL Hall of Famer Richard Dent. I don't know if Al, if you have any other ones that you looked up.
I was going to go Interstate 95.
That's a good one.
That's all I got.
I'll be on it tomorrow on my way. I got to go to Hartford tomorrow morning. I'll be riding that baby.
There you go. I'm not on it enough, and especially during rush hour. Like, I've never had to work a job where I had to be on 95 during rush hour, so I don't hate 95. I know a lot of people hate 95.
I think it depends on where you're at in 95 too, though.
76 is way more heel than 95.
We should maybe draft the worst roads in the Philadelphia area. That could be a 50-round draft.
Also, let's show respect to I had to look him up because I didn't know his first name, but current 95 on the Eagles, Marlon Tuipulotu, who actually got some good burn last year.
Oh, here we go. Ernie, I have a note in the chat. William Fuller wore number 95.
Big William Fuller.
That was another nominee, Ern. I was thinking William Fuller.
Yes, he did.
You know what? I always want to call William Fuller the refrigerator for some reason. It's like ingrained in my mind.
William Fuller is one of the most underrated Eagles of our lifetimes.
He only played 2 years there. I was on his stat page today looking at
him. He was a stud. He was our him and Willie T.
Yeah, he had like 13 sacks.
Huh?
He had like 13 sacks both years.
Yeah, he was good. I think he went to a Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, 13 sacks he should have.
Look that up now real quick because I'm almost positive.
Ern will tell us. You don't have to look anything up. Ern, give us the lowdown.
Well, and you know what's funny? I feel like everybody from that era is just like washed away from history. Like, I don't know. Is Ray Rhodes still alive? Has anybody seen Ray Rhodes?
Coach of the year in 95.
Yeah, like Andy Harmon, those guys. How about that Mike Zordich?
Oh,
remember Mike Zordich? He walked so Dawkins could run.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about other white defensive backs later on tonight, so maybe Mike Zordich is a good way in there.
Yeah, 90. I think 91. Actually, William Fuller went to 4 Pro Bowls.
How many with the Birds?
With the Eagles was 94, 95, and 96.
Good for him, William Fuller.
And he was what's AP? He was an All-Pro, second team All-Pro in 95. So don't disrespect my man. He should have been the first one on here.
What about Richard Dent?
He wasn't a bird for that long. What was he, a season?
I don't even think he was a bird for maybe at all.
No, he was on the Eagles for like at the end of his career for a hot cup of coffee. I don't even know if it was hot.
How about Dolly Parton for 95, working that 9 to 5?
9 to 5.
Got to think outside the box here.
Yeah. All right. Before we get into our first segment tonight, I do want to shout out to Sunshine Sandwich Shop. I left them hanging, I think, for a couple of weeks there with just so much going on in the sports world. But we're still working with the Sunshine Sandwich Shop at 5154 Ridge Avenue in Manayunk. Swing down there for all your cold sandwiches needs, hot sandwiches as well. I think they did the special cheesesteak that was out last week. So go down there, grab a bite. Tell them the 3K podcast sent you. Good people down there and good eats as well. So shout out to the Sunshine Sandwich Shop in Manioc.
Before we start, I just want to close this intro here by Richard Dent did play his last season in the NFL at 97 with the Eagles. And more importantly, his nicknames listed on Pro Football Reference, as we all notice, a favorite of ours, the Colonel and Sackman. Not the Sackman, but Sackman.
Maybe it's Sackman.
Sackman. He was a Sackman. He
Look
had
at this.
he had 137 and a half sacks in his career.
35 and a half sacks in 3 seasons per Ernie.
Yeah, Ernie's
Ray Rhodes is still alive per Ernie.
Ray Rhodes is still alive.
Where is he though? Is he in exile somewhere? Like, does he owe somebody money? Like, you never see him.
He gets beers with Ern every Friday after work, probably.
I guess.
All right, gents. Sixers do what they always do. They tickle the dick and then they let you down.
Hey,
they come out on Thursday night. They play a great game. They win 125-114 behind 50 from Joel Embiid, only to take all that momentum into Sunday, where they lay an egg and lose to the New York Knicks 97-92. Al, Chris, this is where I usually pass the baton to you guys for your initial thoughts. But tonight, I want to start the show with my initial thoughts because I put a lot of thought into what I saw yesterday. I'm trying not to be overreactive. I actually typed out a lot of my thoughts here, so I may read a
manifesto, if you will,
of what I'm going to say here. And this is how I want to get it started. First of all, before we even go about playing the blame game, congratulations to the New York Knicks. They played a fantastic game yesterday. They outworked the Sixers. They out-hustled the Sixers. Jalen Brunson, who we all thought we had bottled up after 2 games in New York, comes into Philadelphia, goes for 39 and 13 on Thursday, goes for 47 and 10 yesterday, and they played their asses off. And I want to at least tip my cap to the New York Knicks before I even start off anything. Secondly, before I get into the Joel Embiid stuff, I also want to say I don't think Tyrese Maxey played a great game yesterday. I didn't think he had his best. I thought he missed the biggest shot of the entire game. Sixers were down 1. He had a wide open 3 with just under 4 minutes to go in the game, and he back rimmed it. It's a shot he has to make if he wants to take that next level in a game like that. All right, on to the more important stuff. Chris, I feel bad for you. I'm going to start there.
Don't feel bad for me.
Yeah, I feel bad for you because Embiid finally had his game, and you could come on this podcast and stick it to me and Al. And then yesterday happens. And it's time to look at the big picture and what exactly is going on with him and this team. And if we look back on this series 5 years from now, we're going to look at Joel Embiid's Pro Basketball Reference page. You're going to see that he averaged 35, 9, and 5, given depending what happens in the rest of the series. And and granted, his efficiency isn't good, but we're going to be like, wow, he had a hell of a series, but he just must not have had enough help to get over the hump. But at the end of the day, here's my issue with Joel Embiid the more I thought about it. He's a top 5 player in the world. We've all discussed that, at least in the regular season on this podcast, and we all agreed upon it. But if that's the case, why do I have these 3 questions that consistently pop up? Number 1, why am I worried before every playoff game whether or not he's going to show up? Number 2, why do I have to constantly worry about him being fatigued in the fourth quarter of big games? 3, why do I have to worry about whether or not we can get him the ball in the right situation in crunch time? Every team in the NBA finds a way to get their studs the ball when it matters. Denver to Jokic, Dallas to Luka, Boston to Tatum, Minnesota to Edwards. Yet Joel Embiid always struggles to find his position. I'm watching yesterday in the fourth quarter, and the tallest player on the New York Knicks that was out there was 6'8", and that was Precious Achiuwa. And Joel Embiid is being guarded by OG Anunoby, who is a small forward, yet he continually gets pushed out to the perimeter to receive the ball. Maybe that's a coaching issue, but this is now the 3rd coach that we've seen have the same issues with Joel. Maybe it's the players around him, yet we've seen so many different combinations come along and try and fit with him, only for us to blame them at the end that they weren't good enough. Whether it's the shooters with J.J. Redick, Ersan Ilyasova, Marco Bellinelli, Robert Covington, or the team after that, which was filled with wings of Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler, or the team after that that had the veterans like Seth Curry and Danny Green, or the James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, or this group. And let's not forget, without the role players this year, they don't win the first playoff game against the Miami Heat. At the end of the day, Joel Embiid is averaging 35-9 in this series. However, in the fourth quarter, he is 3 for 18 from the floor, and he has grabbed a total of 2 rebounds in 4 games in the fourth quarter. The problem yesterday down the stretch was that the Sixers did not make any shots, and they did not grab any rebounds. And when the Knicks downsized, our 7-2 center had 1 point and 1 rebound in 12 minutes. The Knicks missed 11 shots in the fourth quarter. They grabbed their own rebound 7 times. That means we had 4 defensive rebounds. In conclusion, Joel Embiid cannot find a way to play playoff basketball for 4 quarters without fatiguing. We can blame it on his injuries. We can blame it on his size. We can blame it on his weight. But at the end of the day, he's the only player in the entire playoffs who continually looks gassed at the end of games. And that's what I have left. That's my final thoughts on the situation.
Chris, I know you're gonna give your
No,
rebuttal.
you guys do your thing. I'm hanging out.
You said last week, and I want to make it very clear. First of all, I promised myself tonight that I'm not going to come on here. I'm not going to scream and yell. I'm not going to do all that because I did it last week, and I'm a little ashamed. I'm a little embarrassed. At times, I feel like I come off that I hate this team and I hate Joel Embiid and I want them to lose so that I'm right. I don't. I want them to succeed. I went through this with Ben Simmons. I talked to anybody who would listen to me that Ben Simmons had to go because he was a loser and he was poisoning this franchise. And at the end of the day, I want to be proven wrong. I want the Sixers to win in 7. But there comes a point in time, and Adam, you just summed it up perfectly. I have nothing more to add to that. There's nothing more that I can see out of Joel Embiid or out of this Sixers team that's going to make me believe that they can make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, let alone win an NBA title with this core group. It just is not happening. And Chris, I really hope that you're beginning to even see just a crack of that light through the blinds of hope and through the blinds of optimism that you have, because you hold that down for the 3 of us. But at some point, man, for your own mental health, you got to start to see the light that this is just not going to work with Joel Embiid.
Listen, I guess the person I am as a leadership teacher and a coach and all this other now a parent, and one day, God willing, being able to influence my daughters and things. I always have a glass half full mentality. That's just how I am. All right. So that's where the Embiid feelings for me come. However, I have been misunderstood or sometimes even misquoted as acting like I'm a total 100% Embiid apologist. I'm not. I told you guys there's times when he's let us down, and I admit that, and I get that. But Seltzer, first off, the first thing about the manifesto that you just said, the Knicks did not play a great game. They did not play their ass off. They shot 26% from 3. They shot 62% from the foul line. And the difference in they had less assists than the Sixers did. The difference in the game, and they had more turnovers. The difference in the game was that fourth quarter.
That's
all right?
what I was talking about.
The difference in you said they played their ass off. They didn't. They did not. They looked for 97 points, and they were out stat-wise. They did not play a great game. All right, they were ripe for the picking again, and again, we let them off the hook because we can't board the ball. They had, I believe it was between team rebounds, which for those who don't know, if you shoot the ball and the other team tips out of bounds and you get the ball back, that's a team offensive rebound. Between that and actual physical offensive rebounds, the Knicks had, I believe, 13 offensive rebounds in the fourth quarter. That can't happen. And that's the difference in the game. Did they out-hustle us? Had they been out-hustling us? Absolutely. That's the difference in this series. And I've been saying, and I will die on the hill, they are not, top to bottom, they are not a better team than the Sixers. The Sixers won a 61-win pace before Embiid got hurt. All right, they got to a 7 seed because of Embiid's injury and because of other injuries on this team. The Knicks, with everybody, still ended up capping out sub 50 for wins. So they're not a better team than the Sixers. Have they outplayed the Sixers? You could argue, yes, they've outplayed the Sixers, absolutely, especially when it matters. All right, but we watched
quick counterpoint, and I'll let you.
No, I didn't interrupt you.
No, I know. But you said the Knicks had no injuries. They missed Julius Randle for the last 30 games of the season.
Okay, but
No.
is he to the level of Joel Embiid?
No, but you said they were healthy.
If they had missed Jalen Brunson, yeah, I can understand that. But if you listen to ain't too much train of thought. What I'm trying to say is that, and this is a total heel moment, and I'm here to embrace it, and that's fine. I love this city. I love the Sixers. I love our fan base. All right. But I'm also someone that loves accountability. And yes, Joel needs to take accountability more for those fourth quarter situations. All right. But also, another hill I'm willing to die on all the time. It's an organizational issue. This team, this organization, Al, you've been saying it for a long time, and I agree with you. The Sixers organization is a loser mentality. They have a loser mentality, and it comes onto the court, and it comes into their strategy of what they're doing. And they took this year, and they basically, for all intents and purposes, punted it to see what would happen with a team built around Maxey and Embiid and a bunch of role players. And the ironic thing is, the role players they needed right now, they gave up for a role player who's giving them nothing. And that's another fault of this team and this series, is we don't have enough dogs on this team. The Knicks are full of dogs, and I give them credit. They are full of dogs, top to bottom, all right? They got dogs on the bench that haven't even seen this series, and I give them that. We had dogs, and we let them go for a kitten. You know, I don't even want to call Buddy Hield a kitten. He's less than that. That guy is not usable in this series. Your boy Paul Reed is not usable in this series. Okay, everybody knows when Joel comes out the game. It happened yesterday. It happened yesterday. I think we were up 10 or whatever it was. And when Joel came out, Paul Reed played 4 minutes. All of a sudden, the Knicks were back in the game. You could feel the energy change as soon as Embiid sat down. And the guy can't even rest. All right. So when you talk about him being gassed in the fourth quarter, and you talk about how he can't get a rebound, and you talk about he only had a 1 point, I get all that and I understand it. But at the same time, the guy, they had seven, again, another hill, 7 bench points. It's not just Joel. This team, top to bottom, needs to do better.
But Chris,
and if you don't see that, I don't know what we're looking at. We're looking at 2 different series. Yes, Joel has to be accountable for those instances. But at the same time, I understand why that's happened. I don't understand why other guys that are on this team play a total of, I think, I'm going to calculate it right now. So I think it was 47 total minutes for bench minutes yesterday, and they had 6 points, 7 points.
Chris, a few things. Our bench stinks, okay? Nobody's sitting here saying that, our bench.
But that's part of it.
But I get that, right? Tobias Harris, Kyle Lowry, and Kelly Oubre, as bad as Tobias Harris is at times, and as bad as Kelly Oubre is at times, they still combined for 36 points, okay? At some point, when you talk about accountability, the greatest of the greats, their mentality, their leadership, their attitude trickles down to the non-dogs and makes them dogs because they're a dog themselves. We talked about in the opening, we mentioned Brian Dawkins. He's a guy who trickled down to the rest of that defense and gave them that dog mentality, right? You talk about Joel Embiid. For some reason, every time you surround him with whomever it might be, guys they aren't dogs. So isn't it some guess, even 1%, isn't it on him to start to bring the guys up around him?
Oh, for sure. And you're 100% right. And we go back to Boston last year in game 7 and what that looked like. And he was 100% in the wrong for that. And his performance was atrocious. And I'm not here to say it's not. But at the same time, we're dealing with grown-ass men too. And some of these guys got to look themselves in the mirror and say, we got to buckle up because we're up against the ropes and we're in our building, even though it was hard to really tell that sometime. And that's another conversation. All right. Nick Batum. First of all, I'm not even fully 100% blaming him for his lack of points because I feel like he actually should have played more minutes. And I loved what he did for the most part offensively when they put him on Brunson and other and put him with comboing him off of Hart and those guys. But the Knicks played 2 bench guys, 3 if you count Bogdanovich's 1 minute before he got hurt. 2 bench guys had 14 total points. Our 4 had 6. Okay. So is Embiid part of the fault? Yes. But I cannot sit here this season and tell you he is the major part of the biggest part, because I think it's an organizational problem. And this guy is playing way too many minutes with what he's got going on because he has no help. And I'm disappointed in Nick Nurse in the sense that I haven't really seen from a personnel perspective a lot of adjustments or a lot of experimentation. All right. Because when you're down 2-1 or 2-0 or 3-1 now, you got to kind of like empty the deck out. You got to see what you got in the cabinet and throw some things against the wall, because obviously what you got going on hasn't been working. With the exception of Campaign, everybody else on that bench, Melton should not have played yesterday. That was a total waste of time. Paul Reed had to play because he had to spell Embiid off the court for a few minutes to get a drink and to chill for 2 seconds, and they couldn't even do that right. So like it's top to bottom. Tobias is in there. Literally, the crowd is saying like we're at LA Fitness or something. He gets the ball, pass it, like literally the crowd, like nobody wants him to even touch the ball. And when he has touched it, he's screwed it up.
I understand you saying that you don't want to blame Joel Embiid in the micro of this season based on what he was doing before he got injured and was out. But for Adam and I think it's the macro. We're looking at it from a lens where we're zooming out and we're looking at it over the course of 8 seasons. And that's what's frustrating for me as a fan of this team and as a fan of Joel Embiid, as much as I trash him these days. One silver lining, that's a little off topic. At least if we lose in this first round, we don't have to, the Paul Reed, the poison pill kicks in. Paul Reed's gone.
Oh, the poison pill is swallowed.
Paul Reed is not the problem. He's backup center.
He's not the problem.
He's not the whole problem, but he is more a problem than you're acting like, because they can't give Embiid rest because he sucks.
And it's the second unit. It's not just Paul Reed. It's the second
right.
unit.
But he is the one that's giving the best player on the team the break, that we can't afford to have him on the bench because he sucks.
Yeah, he's just proving he can't play. That's what I'm saying. I don't want him. He can't play.
He was bad yesterday, but I don't think he was been bad in the series, honestly.
He has no basketball IQ whatsoever.
He's terrible, and he's not gotten any better. He's been in the league. He's not a rookie anymore.
They're backup centers. How many backup centers are any good?
First of all, he's not even a center. He was a 3 at DePaul, and they tried to convert him into a big, and that clearly does not work.
We're getting off topic here if we're blaming Paul Reed.
No, it's not because I said a big issue for me has been the bench. The bench has not shown up.
I look at a team like Denver, who was the defending champs this year. Their bench is Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, and Justin Holiday.
Right. And
Nikola Jokic goes 42 minutes and dominates the whole way through.
And you know what else they have? They have a bona fide third guy to go with him and Murray. The Sixers don't. The Sixers bona fide guy that's making $39 million, that's making more than all those guys on the Nuggets, is giving you 10 points and 8 rebounds.
Dallas Mavericks
T-Rex hands.
The Dallas Mavericks bench. Maxi Kleber, Derek Lively, and Josh Green. These teams, you need your starters to be the guys. You can't count on these bench guys in the playoffs unless you have 1 or 2. You may get an opportunity where you have a Minnesota who has a Naz Reid who can make a difference. But the majority of the teams are relying on their 5 starters and their stars to be stars. And I just don't understand. Again, how does this guy never in shape? Why does he always fatigue? Karl Anthony Towns tore his meniscus, came back the game before the end of the season. I don't hear anything about him not being in shape. How does Joel Embiid's played 10 games now? How can he not have his wind at this point?
It's honestly, it's annoying, man. This whole take's annoying. This guy's playing with a screwed up leg and Bell's palsy, and we're acting like the guy is like 100% healthy and just not showing up. He's playing way more than he should be playing. And he's still on his.
What does that mean? 60, way more than 50%.
At 50%, he's still giving you the best numbers on this team.
We're not questioning his heart, though. We're not questioning his heart. We're questioning whether or not he can physically hold up, and he can't.
But is that his fault?
All that is part of it. If you have a guy that physically can't hold up, you don't have a guy.
Is that all? Like I've agreed with you with that. I've said I don't know if physically his body will allow him to get to the pinnacle of what he can get to.
That's
what he's capable of.
Okay, so he's 30.
But that's not his fault.
He's 31 now. So what are we doing?
I don't even think I thought he was 30.
Okay, 31 next season.
Okay, so but even still, you're acting. You're like the blame is going on him and the hatred is going on him as if it was his, like these certain things are his fault. And I disagree. I think, Seltzer, you are questioning his heart, because when you talk about sitting there and you're saying about his conditioning, that's questioning if he's ever motivated enough to get into physical shape. And it's not his fault when he can't fully get into shape because his body won't let him get into shape. All right. And he's still playing. He played 44 minutes. You play 44 minutes anywhere in the world in any level of basketball with what he's got. Give it a shot.
Yes.
See if you can do what he can do.
He physically will play through injuries.
He doesn't get credit for it. He gets no credit for it.
But at the end of the day, like he needs to produce. A lot of guys are playing hurt right now. He's not the only one. And
but he's not sitting there
you know what, Joel?
10 and 5. He's getting 50
Chris.
in game 3. He
We
had 27 last night
injury
and in a bad game.
Times. We go through this every year with his knee. Guess what? You want to show me that you have the guts? Drop 40 pounds this summer. He never does it. He always comes back out of shape.
He did drop weight last year.
No, he's never dropped 40 pounds where it's been noticeable. Never.
I listen, I don't think
he can't play at that weight. He can't play it. His body can't hold it.
I don't think weight's the issue. I think it's his body. I think that if he weighed 200 pounds, I think that his joints, his muscles, he's not he wasn't. I don't know if he was truly born to play basketball. He's a guy who's very long, very tall, and developed the skill set to be an elite player. But some guys are built for that. Some guys have the heart and the skill set and the body to be built to do this stuff. I don't think he was truly built for this specifically. But to his credit, he's taken the ball, so to speak, and ran with it with a career and made money, millions of dollars and acclamation out of it. But I don't think it was actually like, he came in from Africa and Cameroon, wanted to be a volleyball guy. Like he wasn't a basketball player. And I've even said before with issues when I said about when I was critical of him, when I said, if you look at what he did at Kansas, if you looked at what he did when he got to the Sixers, and the times when he was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is for me. And he still ended up sucking it up and sticking with it and getting to where he's gotten. He gets no credit for that. All I hear all day long is the guy sucks. It's time to get rid of him. He's never there. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. There was near energy of that ilk after game 3. None.
Chris,
because they lost the game, he has to be the one to bear every brunt all the time.
The irony of game 3,
he's the one that has to be the one all the time.
The irony of game 3 is that his dirty ass play on Mitchell Robinson that took him out of the game is maybe why they lost in game 4, because it allowed the Knicks to try, experiment with this downsizing thing, which took him out of the game.
That's the irony of the whole thing. Here's a heel take for you. Screw the Knicks, and I'm glad he did it, because how many times do those freaking dudes on all these teams go and cheap shot him all the time?
Oh my God!
Every time.
He has
Toronto did it.
He has double the amount of flagrant fouls than anybody in the league.
Do it. So screw him.
He is a dirty player. He has double the amount of flagrant fouls of anybody in the league in the last 10 years.
But you know what? He's pissed off. He's pissed off. He gets it all the time.
If somebody would have done that to him, you would have gone nuts.
Huh?
If somebody would have done what he did to Robinson to him, you'd be fuming.
Probably. But I understand why he did it. I totally understand it. If I kept getting poked in the friggin' back and kicked and swiped under and all kind of poked in the eye, all right, all those times over the years, I'd be pretty pissed off and want retaliation too.
Well, it happened to Shaq, and all Shaq did was win how many rings?
Shaq also had Kobe Bryant out. Come on. Stop.
Yes, you're the number of
he had Dwayne Wade.
Yes, the last 10 minutes have been nothing but boo-hoo and excuses for Embiid. I'm ready to move on because you won't ever see the light, dude. All you have is excuses for this guy. Like, yeah, we blame him because he doesn't win. He puts his worst foot forward when we need him the most. I just don't understand. Like, would you ever drive a car that gets you 80% of the way every time you get in it? Like, this is what we're doing with this guy.
Listen, I've just sat here and said 4 different times, I understand when it's time to be critical of this guy, and I've been there. I have. I just told you instances of when I was critical of him, but it doesn't mean that he's the sole. It's like people make it like he's the sole reason we're down 3-1, and that's just not fair. It's not fair. This town. Let me tell you something. This town is notorious for getting superstars out. Okay, they booed Ryan Howard all the time. We booed Mike Schmidt all the time. They Allen Iverson for a lot of people thought he was a thug, didn't want him on the team. All kind of stuff. McNabb was always a choke. All he did was end up being still to this day the best quarterback the Eagles have ever had. He still has not been fully replaced. Jalen Hurts has one bad season. We don't know if he's the guy. Phillies start 3-4. They already suck. Let's wrap it up. It's annoying. It's a freaking joke, and it's annoying. And every single time we have one bad situation with this guy, the wheels fall off. It's nobody's fault but his. I come from the school of the opposite end. It's always him and nobody else. And that's not always fair. When it's fair, last year it was absolutely fair. It was 95% his fault last year. This year's not 95% his fault. It's like 50% his fault. This team around him is trash. All right. In this right now, I'm saying right now, in this situation, right now, they have not stepped up. All right. Through the season, like I said, they were extrapolated to 61 wins. But right now, they have played the majority of them like trash. That's not his fault.
Chris, was yesterday's game a must-win, would you say?
No.
Was it a very important game?
You got to win 4 games in the series.
Was it a very important game?
And that's no, yeah, but
okay, let me ask you a follow-up.
Hold on. Just you, Al, the city, everybody's acting like the series is over. This series isn't over yet. It's 3-1. Like, let the guys bury themselves first before we actually throw the roses on top of them. This series is still not over. Anything could happen. Yeah. Anything has happened. We've seen times when Nick Nurse was down 2 games in the series before and came back and won. We've seen all the times Doc's been up 3-1 and screwed it up. Anything could happen. And Thibodeau's running these guys in the ground. Who knows if all of a sudden lightning in a bottle strikes with these guys on the road and they carry this to game 7. I don't know. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you don't know.
And you're saying this team is trash, which that's fine. Joe,
I said they've been playing like trash.
Well, I know, but elimination game, Joel. What am I supposed to believe I'm going to get out of elimination game, Joel?
No, I'll tell you, if it's like game 7 last year, tomorrow night, and he goes out there and does nothing, I'm first one on here next week. Yo, you hit on that. That was right. That's fine. He didn't come up big. But that hasn't happened yet. When it happens, we'll cross the bridge.
Okay.
But right now, he has not played. I don't think, like, last night wasn't a great, or yesterday afternoon wasn't a great game from him, from start to finish, because of the way he finished the game. It was not a great game.
We've seen 7 seasons of elimination game Joel average 22 points a game. So I'm not going to sit here and hold my breath.
All right, so we'll see what happens. We also never saw him have 50 points in the series, in a game in a series either, and he did it. So let's see what happens.
Here was my question. I think yesterday was a big game. You said that. Joel's the best player on the team, correct?
Yeah.
Played 12 minutes in the fourth quarter.
He had to.
Had 1.1 rebound. That's why he's getting the blame.
I don't know what else. I don't know how many times or languages I can say it in. The guy can't get off the court because his backups guys suck. He has to be on the court.
He played
his plus minus shows it. Look at the Sixers plus minus with him being on the court versus with him off the court. He's their only shot.
What was his plus minus in the fourth quarter yesterday?
His plus minus for the game was one of the only guys that had a positive.
Okay, but in the fourth quarter, what was it?
I don't know. I'm looking at the game.
Minus.
I'm looking at the game.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the only ones that had crunch time when we gave it away.
Plus minus.
He doesn't do enough when it matters most.
He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything the game before that.
In the fourth quarter, he's 3 for 18. He has 2
rebounds. He had the most efficient game in NBA playoff history.
Yeah, he was great
in game 3.
And he was above and beyond what he needed to be in game 3. He was fantastic. And we need more efforts. Not necessarily like that. I'm not saying he needs to score 50 a night, but we need more.
You are. Games. You guys do say that.
No.
Yes. The guy averages 35 this series, and he's not doing enough.
Yes, praising
the playoffs and scoring, he's not doing enough.
Praising a top tier talent like Joel Embiid for having and it's a ridiculous game. It's the game of his life. But for having a ridiculous game in a first round series is a loser mentality, dude. Nobody goes back and remembers 2005 when such and such Brandon Roy went off for 40 for the Blazers in game 2 of a first round. You know what I'm saying? Like he's got to do that more when it counts, not just one time in one series.
Every playoff game counts, man.
You can't say that. That's like we should be all of a sudden like he's the man again. Like not after then he goes out and lays an egg.
Okay. Let me put this final thought out there, and then I'll let you guys each have a sentence to figure it out, because I think this is kind of where it's all come to fruition for me. Chris, you said earlier in this that the Sixers are a better team than the New York Knicks. The Sixers,
go ahead.
Overall, the Sixers have been a better team than the Atlanta Hawks. The Sixers have arguably been a better team than Miami the one year. Eventually, if you have these better teams and you are one of the best players in the world, I don't care how many points you have. I need you to win a series. And we've gone through, as I mentioned, 3 separate coaches, 4 sets of different role players around him. And this continually happens where we lose to an inferior team. That's my issue with Joel Embiid. That, in a nutshell, is that regardless of the stats, we don't win these series that we're supposed to win, and we always find another way to blame. Some are more warranted than others. I will give you that. The Ben Simmons thing, this and that. Sometimes we've been snake bitten, but it's happened too many times that with too many different groups of players for us not to see a common focal point at this point. That's my closing point.
Listen, if you go back and you really cared that much, and you went back into the archives of this podcast, I've said that Joel's the common denominator. I've said that, and I understand that, and I agree with that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that he's encompassing every single flaw that we've had for the last 7 years. That's not fair. This team, what year? I think of maybe one team in that span where we could rely upon more than 2 guys to show up, and that was 2019. What year, you tell me, can you rely on 3 or more Sixers in a playoff game to bring out their best and play with their ass off every game?
How many guys on the New York Knicks? How many New York guys in New York can you consistently think are going to show up every night?
For the Knicks, I don't care about the Knicks. I'm talking about the Sixers.
They're going to beat us.
But I'm talking about the Sixers.
Okay, but I'm saying
every year you're saying, like, we're talking about the common denominations of this franchise, and he's one of them. And I understand that. But every year, besides 2019, tell me the teams that we've had where you can depend upon more than just him and player B to be able to be relied on this team to come through.
I think the majority. What'd you say?
Who did Atlanta have?
Atlanta, listen, that's my point. My point is these guys have played above their means in these series, to their credit. We don't have the guys to do that.
I don't think these other teams have more than 2 or 3 guys. That's, I think, what our point is. Right. Is I think you're giving these other teams too much credit. Like the Knicks have. Who do the Knicks have that have been consistently like showing up? Josh Hart had no points yesterday.
And that's another thing.
Dante DiVincenzo has been in single digits 3 out of 4 games. It's not like those guys are tearing the roof off.
This series, it sucks because it's. I was telling someone the other day. Normally in the NBA, because of being best of 7, you find out the best team at the end. Except the only 2 times I can recall that not being the case. Unfortunately, if it plays out where the Knicks win this series, are this series and that Atlanta series, and they happen to both be against us.
All right. Do we want to spend a minute on the fans? Because I'll say this about the fans. Philly fans need to suck it up and shut their mouths. Because our MO is we love doing this to other teams and other cities, going and recording our little TikToks and our Instagram videos and posting it. And look at us when we win. Look at us when we go and we travel and we bring thousands of our diehard fans to the other team stadiums and arenas, and how funny it is and how many likes can we get. But it happens to us, and all of a sudden we're crying and whining about it, and we're butthurt about it, and now we're pointing fingers at each other, blaming people for selling tickets, and you should have went to these games, and the season ticket holders should be true fans and all this stuff. Dude, that to me, if you're a fan and you're listening and you're mad about the New York fans doing what they did at the Wells Fargo Arena after that game, then dude, you got to win. You got to win.
Right. And
the fans.
And I mostly agree with you. The only thing I would say is you're right. We go to other places. We take pride in going and taking over stadiums, arenas, whatever. But I can tell you, as someone that's been on both sides of that, going to places and now seeing this firsthand, Phillies, we do not go to places and rip up all their stuff. We do not say after their best player in their concourse. We do not deface property on their statues and all kind of stuff. These guys have clearly showed they're not used to winning. And they're clearly showing they can't afford to go to their own arena, so they're coming here. And it's the classless ones. It's not the celebrities. It's not this like the ones that are sitting low level at the Garden. It's the people who are in the GA or who are like the cockroaches that they are, getting their eyes behind the cracks and the crevices in the building because they can't get in. They're getting in here and they're showing their ass. And I don't care what you say. And not just Philly. I haven't seen anybody do that in other people's places like they did yesterday.
Yeah, I'm not defending the classless crap. I'm not defending that. I'm just saying that
That's
you can't be mad that a visiting team takes over your arena when they beat us. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I agree with that part. I agree with that. I'm just saying that the Philly, we don't do the stuff that they were doing in our. That's the difference. But other than that, as far as like, manning up and being like, yo, they got us. They came in here and like, what do you like? If those tickets were the opposite and they were cheap, best believe we'd be going up there.
Yeah, take your lumps.
I don't have much to add. I agree with you guys. I give them credit for coming in. Some of the stuff was a little over the top and probably crossed the line.
I mean, I've been to Eagles games, other playoff games, and heated matchups. That was the worst thing I've ever seen yesterday. Of all days, ironically, on a Sunday afternoon. That was embarrassing for humanity. That was terrible.
Guess 6ers and 7.
I hope so, man. Like I said, I'm a glass half full guy. I'd be a hypocrite if I came up here, woe is me all the time. I'd be a hypocrite.
I'm not asking you what you want. We all want 6ers and 7.
I'm going to die with the team. If they lose, I lose. I'm telling. I said they were going to win the series. I'm going to stay with that. I'm not going to jump ship now. That's the problem. We got too many people in this city that jump ship all the time. Too early.
You call it jumping ship, though. I call it being realistic at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not jumping ship. I didn't burn my jersey. Like
Sixers win game 5 and they'll come back home and lose game 6. That's the Sixers way. All right, let's get to something a little bit more encouraging at this point. The segment 2, the Philadelphia Phillies are red hot, 19-10 through 29 games, 11-2 in their last 13. Their starting pitching has been elite. Philly starters have a 2.36 team ERA, second lowest in baseball behind the Boston Red Sox. I know we're big analytic guys here. So the Phillies starting pitching, first in WAR, second in FIP, first in XFIP, and most importantly, first in BABIP.
BABIP.
By almost 30 points. I know, Al, you had a good idea for this in segment rather than just kind of spill the beans on what everybody kind of knows is going on. Do you want to kind of give the idea and we'll jump
We're going to just pick a player or pick something about the Phillies and we're going to compare them to a spring day because spring in Philadelphia, you can get anything. Right? We've had snowstorms in the spring in the past. We've had huge snowstorms, but you get to like today. Today was beautiful, unseasonably warm for some, probably in the 80s, mid to high 80s today, with a little bit of humidity there mixed in. So we're going to compare some players in the Phillies to some spring days that you might encounter in the greater Delaware Valley
and vicinity.
Who wants to go first?
I'll kick it off. And because I want to do it because we probably all have this guy. I would imagine we all want to give this guy his flowers. No pun intended. I can hear my wife, Casey, upstairs. She worked late, so I can hear her upstairs. So this is going to be an admission that maybe she wasn't ready for, but I'm in love with someone else.
Oh,
I have to confess my love for someone else, for another. A little bit of shades of infidelity here. I'm in love with Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez is the 78-degree day. No humidity, just a few clouds, maybe a little gentle breeze coming in, at time to time. And more importantly, it's that day where you have off from work and maybe you even already had a tee time booked like a week in advance and you get to just go enjoy this day. Ranger Suarez is an ace. He's an ace. He's the guy that we want Nola to be. And I hope that Topper can see that he is a reliable arm, not just now in the beginning of the year, but when we get to the playoffs, because I don't want to see this pitch count stuff anymore. And this, Rangers going through the lineup for a third time anymore. And here's why. Here are your stats. Rangers first in baseball in whip, 0.63 whip. He's lefties are batting just 0.48 against him. I'm sorry. His whip is 0.48 against lefties. Excuse me. His ERA is 1.32, which is second in Major League Baseball. It's first in the National League. He's first in WAR. He's tied for first in wins with 5. He's tied for first in quality starts with 5. His 1.1 walks per 9 is a career low. He only has 5 walks all season in his 6 starts. He has a .191 BABIP, and he is in the top 1% in pitchers in Major League Baseball in hitters' exit velocity. But the cherry on top, boys, is he's better as the games go on this season. When he faces batters for the third time, they're only hitting 103 against him, which is the lowest when he sees them the first time, second time, third time. He's always been a reliable arm in the postseason, but he really seems to have found something. His sinker is dropping about 3 inches more than it has in the past. He's relying on and throwing his curveball more with success. And I hate to say this name, and it's more because he's a lefty and he was a guy who was not an overpowering pitcher.
Say Cliff Lee.
Oh, I thought you were going Tom Glavine.
Tom Glavine. He's Glavine-esque. Okay. He really is, because he's hitting his spots and he's making guys look foolish up there. They can't get the bat on the ball and they can't get hard hits off of him. Guys, I love Ranger Suarez as much as I love my 78-degree day.
All right,
I just wanted to add that real quick to that, because I had literally the same exact thing. And I was telling Sarah Durham, we were watching one of the games over the weekend, and I was saying he's becoming my favorite Philly.
Yep.
And he reminds me of Cliff Lee. And I've said that for a while now, and I was a little bit – I didn't know how to really feel about that, because I thought maybe I might have been overrating him a little bit, but I don't think I am anymore. I mean, in his prime, Cliff Lee was elite. And I think he's right there with him. In fact, I'll even go far as to say I might consider – I know they probably won't. Well, we'll see. I might consider him as our number 2 guy in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if this keeps up, for sure. Chris, I want to give you some credit, because I'm on board. I actually didn't use Ranger because I figured you guys would. But this is not the first time that we've seen this from Ranger. In 2021, he had this ad just popped up, 1.36 ERA over 106 innings. The year after that, he had a 3.65. But Chris, you mentioned last year when we did the preseason thing, he had a little bit of forearm issue in spring training last year. And I think that affected him for a lot of the season last year. And it was a little bit of a down year, of 4.18. He did pitch better in the playoffs and as the season went on. But I think what we're seeing this year is it's not a fluke. I mean, do I think he's going to have an ERA of 1 all year? No. But this guy's bona fide. And he's smooth. He's not a guy who's relying on power. He locates. He's been unbelievable. And I think it's here to stay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The only reason why I don't compare him to Cliff is because the personality and the demeanor aren't the same, but the talent is 100%.
I don't know. Lee was pretty cool, man. You remember that World Series game with the little nonchalant? He was a little cool.
Oh, the glove when he caught it under.
Yeah, he was a cool little cat.
He was also a firecracker. Remember when he farted in the post game? Let me ask you guys this real quick before we get to the next guy. You guys know the contract situation in baseball better than I do. I know that Ranger's on a contract year. Am I correct?
I don't think so. Let me look it up.
Baseball's weird. Like, you got to go till you're 38 to have out of arbitration and all that kind of crap.
Actually, I think we have him for 1 more year. So that's what I was wondering. Like, is he a guy that we can keep long term, or is he going to get paid soon because of this, that, or the other, and bird rights?
I got to imagine now. If he finishes the year, they'll probably look to sign him to an extension this offseason. I would imagine.
I was going to say. I think he would be paid this winter.
But he's under control. Actually, for 25.
He's definitely under control for 25, but I think 26 he's an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, I don't know if that means after 26 or before 26. I'm not sure what that holds there. So we'll have to check that out. But I would imagine he's in for a nice little payday.
Listen, Ernie, I love you, brother, but don't be disrespectful to Ranger Suarez. All right, Terry Mulholland. Now he does have a no-hitter, if I'm not mistaken, under his belt.
Yes,
Terry
he does.
Yeah,
but Randy Wolf, nice pitcher, but I don't think he's gonna. I think his ceiling is a lot higher than Randy.
Ern was leading the Wolf pack.
Let me go next, because my day is similar to the day that you guys just came up with. So we'll just get that out of the way.
By the way, can we have the same players with different conditions?
Yeah. What was your condition for Ranger?
No, that one was the same. It was a beautiful spring day. Okay. But I'm just saying, like, if someone has someone else and it's different conditions, that was all right.
So for me, this guy is when you plan. Let's say you plan an event with something with your wife, a picnic, a Mother's Day event, or you're having a big party or a barbecue outside, maybe a graduation party outside, and you're checking the weather 10 days in advance, and you're looking at it, and you're worried it's going to rain, it's not going to rain. Well, guess what? When you have Alec Boehm, you know it's going to be 75 and sunny every time he comes to the dish, because that guy has a clutch gene in him. We've talked about it before, And if Alec Boehm is that day, you're getting 75 and sunny because he's just going to come through in the clutch for you today. I have in my stats here, he's hitting 365 with 26 RBIs. Let's make it 28 because he led off the game tonight with a 2-run single with the bases loaded and nobody out. The guy has been a monster. If the season ended today, he might be your National League MVP. And a guy who I said before the season, I thought maybe a trade deadline candidate with the young kid coming up and some other needs. No. But the way he's played today, he's been one of the best hitters in the entire National League. And I have so much faith in him when he comes to the dish. Love to see a touch more power, but God, he's been so good.
I could actually see them down the road, maybe either having when Schwarber, I'd imagine when he's gone, either having Harper go to DH or having Harper go back to the outfield so that Miller can go to third and Bohm can go to first. Bohm's not going anywhere. And people forget, this is Bohm's, fifth year?
Yeah.
And he was a top, the third pick in the draft? This kid is a blue chip prospect that is now putting it together. So this isn't like a flash in the pan or coming out of nowhere. We've kind of seen this building up a slow maturity over the last, I'd say, 2 years, where he's continuously gotten better and more dependable and reliable for this team. So that's a good one, Seltzer.
And in the field too.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
He could handle third base, hot corner.
Yeah.
Way better than what he was defensively.
And by the way, I don't know how anybody plays third base.
Yeah.
Like, honestly.
You ever see that picture that they put up of how far third is from first and they overlay a football field on it?
It's so underrated.
That is.
Yeah, man. It's so underrated, that throw and just how fast off the bat the ball's coming at you. Like, it's nuts.
Dude, when I played baseball, I could play utility, and coaches would ask me, they'd be, what position do you play? I said, I can play anywhere except third base. That's what I would tell them. I couldn't play third. All right, Chris, hit us up with your next one.
All right, you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going. So when you have a day where Ernie, chill out, you're about to take my thunder. When you have a day like we did a few weeks ago, actually a span of days, where it's springtime, and if you remember, we had a stretch like this a few weeks back where it was in the 70s, low 80s, everybody had a little bit of a little taste,
yeah,
right? And then it went back to earth, and it was raining, and it was 50, 55, 54, rain, and eventually you're like, what the hell is this? That's Nick Castellanos. He's the stretch of time when it's the temperatures are below average, and and you get a lot of rain enough to ruin your plans. Because the way I look at it, Castellanos, we have him for 2 more years, unless there's a trade. But who would trade for him at this point? What are you going to get when you trade for this guy except a headache? $25 million headache.
You got to pay him $20 million too.
You're going to get Liam Castellanos. That's what you're going to get.
All right. So like you're getting disappointed. And that's what you're getting with that weather. You got that little taste of the 80 and sunny, and then it followed a 55 and rain for 4 or 5 days straight. That's him. Disappointment.
Can I ask you a question? How come everybody on this team gets days off and this guy just plays every single day?
Because the money.
Doesn't matter. Like, you can give him a day off.
What are you gonna? What? So he gets cold again? Colder?
So we can have somebody better in the lineup for a day.
They're literally just trying to get that investment right. That's what that is. Al's 100%. That money is why he's playing.
Oh my God! It's
Chris, he's batting. He hits a gazillion home runs, but he bats 190 or whatever. They still want him to like. They gave him a pretty penny too. They gave him a bag. They're not going to do anything with that. That's where he wants to play. That's where he's going to play. Same with Nick.
Schwarber's already
he's been more productive,
obviously.
Yeah. I'm not saying he's been a dud or anything. I'm just saying that like the times he hasn't when he has struggled, it ain't June yet. Schwarber, June is hitting season for Kyle, right? So he's still got that in him. We'd imagine this year as well, but
Nick's got 1 extra base hit this year, maybe 2.
1. I think it's 1.
No, 2. He's got
2. Yeah.
He has a triple and a home run this year.
Yeah.
No, he hasn't homered, has he?
Yeah, he got 1.
Yeah. He just had one. He just had one.
The other night he had 1.
Oh, yeah. I missed it.
It literally hit the top of the wall and went out.
Yeah,
I missed it. Was it against San Diego?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was at San Diego, right? Wasn't it like Friday night?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the other day.
Yes, I had Castellanos. I have the same thing. I have him as when it's a nice day out, and then all of a sudden you just get this this wind gust and this blast of pollen just smacks you in the face, and all the bugs start coming out and shit. That's what I got Casty as, because dude, he's not only is he awful, he ruins the day. Like, he comes up to bat, and I'm just like, damn, man, here we go. Runners in scoring position. He's hitting 179. He has 26 strikeouts with runners in scoring position. He just ruins my day when I see him at the bat.
See, and I had win for another guy coming up, but you're exactly right. Like, it's just and the thing that pisses me off the most about him is he looks like the Roger Dorn of the, like, he couldn't care less if he hit the ball or not.
Nope.
Let me see him throw a helmet in the clubhouse or throw a bat somewhere, but like, pissed off. He doesn't show anything.
All right, if we're going with our negative,
shirt's open.
If we're going with, it does have too many buttons open. All right, if we're going with our negative one, I'm going to go with a guy that, again, I just don't completely trust, although he's been pretty good this year. And I'm going to go Aaron Nola here. And what my thing is Aaron Nola is the really hot, humid spring day. And you want to really like it. You want, it's so nice out. The sun's out. It's beating on you. And you want to go out there. But all it does is make you sweat and uncomfortable, because you know that a meatball burger can go right over the plate and end up over the fence at any minute. And you're just sitting there waiting for it, and you're uncomfortable, and you start sweating. And that's that hot, humid day that you really want to like, but you just really don't.
And a meatball burger in real life in that condition would have the same effect also.
It's true. I mean, in theory, it's the same meat, right?
He does make you sweat, dude.
Yeah. But
he's been good this year. I'm not knocking him. He's been good. It doesn't mean I'm comfortable with him.
He's a Louisiana guy. He loves playing in the heat, so he would love that comparison probably, because he loves to sweat. He loves a little lather going. Lather it up.
He is a warm weather guy, that's for sure. All right, I got one more. How many you guys got?
No, that was it, because I cast Giannis as my other one.
I ain't going another one. I'm going off the top anyway, so I'm just freestyling.
Right, hit us with this one.
I'll have Sir Anthony as my windy day. He's the guy that, like, again, everything looks right. You hear it on paper. You see on paper, I should say. Guy throws 98. He's got a slider with a change up that's around 90. Good velocity, differential and all this stuff. And then he gets on the mound, and everything is just straight. And it's just straight cash for the batters. And next thing you know, he's giving up runs. And just like wind could mess a nice day up. Even it could be beautiful, but if that wind gust is coming, that 35-mile-an-hour wind gust, you can't throw a ball, you can't golf, you can't do a lot of things. It screws everything up. And that's how I feel with this guy. And I hate to say it, because I used to love this dude. But I feel like when he comes in games, he's the wind. Yeah, he's gonna find a way to mess it up.
Yeah, his confidence got killed somewhere, or maybe it's his arm.
I was saying, I think his arm's not the same.
He's going through a couple surgeries, so certainly.
Yeah, I think he's shot. It's a shame. It's sad. But I think we've seen the best of Sir Anthony Dominguez.
All right, my last one. I put Bryce Harper on here, and to me, Bryce Harper is a spring thunderstorm. When the lightning strikes, it reminds me of Thor. Everything Bryce does is just so violent, from his swing to the way he plays defense to the way he runs the bases. And I'm not saying the spring thunderstorm is bad. I'm just saying it just brings in this wind and this gust, and it's coming in hot. I mean, Bryce is fantastic. It's just a lightning bolt that can strike at any moment every time that guy steps up.
I got another one. Speaking of quiet storms, you go on to the Smooth Jazz channel, you get the Quiet Storm broadcast, right? With the nice to do with the deep voice, trying to set the mood. You got a nice little spring night with your lady, your wife. Everything's going well. It's nice and smooth. You're all suave. That's my man, Johan Rojas. He's the quiet storm. All right. Ball's in the air. He's going to coast to it. You don't got to sweat it. Just have a sip. Sit back. Put your arm around your lady or your significant other. Just chill out and relax. He got you.
Can we make a mention of Brandon Marsh, his power this year? Just being able to, what's he have, 6 home runs? I mean, he's playing real well.
And he's picked it up for Castellanos, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And Joel Embiid would just be the day when it rains all day. All right, let's go to segment
You know what?
3.
Listen, you were ready to give up on Rojas earlier in the year. Everybody was ready to give up on Rojas.
I'm not the only one. We just said he wasn't hitting. I said send him to the minors. But no, he's been good. He's stepped up and he's done his job in the 9-hole. Look, we've always said at the end of the day, as long as your top guys hit, the 9-hole doesn't matter. But the problem is when those guys don't hit, the 9-hole all of a sudden becomes more of an issue. And beginning of the year, they weren't hitting. And in the Arizona series, they obviously didn't start hitting. And that's when you see the issue with having a guy like Rojas, who really, it's not his responsibility to be a good hitter in this lineup. That's not what he's here for.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd love to find one for Stott, but he's just kind of in a purgatorial state right now with me. He's getting a little bit better. He had 2 home runs yesterday, but still, he's still warming up a little bit. Maybe he's the guy in like early March when it is the 50 degrees that is when it's starting to finally warm up a little bit. Maybe that's him.
He's like this. He's like this, the low 60s day after it's warm, where like the low 60s doesn't feel warm anymore. You know what I mean? You go out there, and you're like, this isn't bad, but it can be better.
Right, as I say, it's not bad. I'll take it, but like I would love to have better.
Yeah, I already put all my like hoodies away and stuff.
Yeah. And I love Stott. Stott's one of my favorite guys on the team, but I hope he can get it together a little bit.
Me too. I'm not worried about him yet, but talk to me in like 3 weeks if we're still where we are. All right, let's go to segment 3 tonight. And usually we know we play a little fun game here, but we had a lot of local stuff to talk about this week. So we had the NFL draft that just came up. The Eagles end up with, Chris, you mentioned a lot of the guys that you mentioned last week. They start off with 2 cornerbacks with Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, as well as Jalix Hunt and Will Shipley in the first few rounds. Also capped off with Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the linebacker. Chris, give us your thoughts on the draft and how it played itself out.
Again, how he's playing chess. And I think it's, he's another guy. We act like this guy's know what he's doing. This guy knows there's 30 other NFL teams, 32 total teams. There's probably 30 of them that would lick their chops to get Howie Roseman to man their team. He had a great draft, staying put. I don't know how he did it. There's no way I'd have been able to stay put and wait for Quinion to get to 22. I mean, that's just calling around. Seltzer, you know how I roll. I know everybody's information on our fantasy league when that draft's coming up. But that's a 10-man fantasy league. This is a 32-team NFL. And my man's he's working the connects because he had to be to know that was going to happen. And to get both Quinion and DeJean is I can't believe that he was able to do that. I had a feeling that DeJean was very possible based on the way how he talked Thursday night at the press conference, saying like we still got our work to do and this and that. It sounded like they was trying to think about a trade situation, and as we saw, that's what ended up happening. So those are both A+ picks in my opinion. The kid from Houston Christian, formerly known as Houston Baptist, Jalix Hunt. I don't know anything about him. Obviously, most people don't. He was the player of the year in this conference, in the Southland Conference. But I remember watching like a few of those guys, like the YouTube things that were for the edge rushers, and I was like, the Eagles would take this guy that no one's ever heard of, and there he was. So I don't know if he's good or not. I have no idea. I mean, obviously the competition is a factor there. We don't know if he's going to translate to actual, when he's got good competition. Will Shipley, he's okay. He's going to probably compete with Gainwell for some carries, even though they love them some Gainwell.
Yeah, nobody's competing with Gainwell. Gainwell's locked in.
Yeah, I mean, I liked him a lot out of Memphis too, but like in the NFL, he's kind of run dry for me. But he'll probably be competing with him for that spot. The kid from Texas A&M, the receiver, I hope he's shifty because he's very small. So I was reading the CBS Sports had his pro comp as Tank Dell.
Wow, I love Tank Dell.
So and Tank Dell, I don't believe was a high draft pick.
He was a 4th rounder.
Yeah, so if that happens, my God. I mean, and we got a definite bona fide slot guy for years to go with AJ and Devontae. And of course, Scott Jr. is awesome.
I watched a little bit of YouTube highlights of the Smith kid today, and he's small, but what I picked up on was that he doesn't shy away from contact. Like he went over the middle a lot for A&M, and he was shifty, and he uses his body well to avoid tacklers and avoid the big hit. But he still does, like, he doesn't get alligator arms. So I don't really expect much out of him, but like I liked what I saw in that video I watched.
Honestly, I mean, I'd rather give him a shot than to see retreads like Devontae Parker and Paris Campbell and all these. Like I've seen all I need to see of those guys.
Right,
Chris, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Obviously, 2 corners at the top was not something that a lot of people projected. So now the cornerback room is a little bit full. You got Slay, you got Bradbury, you got Maddox, you got Rogers, you got Ricks, Ringo, and now you add these 2 new guys. How do you see that playing out?
Dude, Dejean is I mean, he could play. He's very versatile. I mentioned last week he can play corner. He could play inside, outside. He could play safety. He can do a lot of different things. So they'll get him on the field. You talk about a utility guy. He'll be a defensive utility guy until they find his exact place where they want for him down the road. I think ultimately he's going to end up being a safety on this team. I think that everybody's favorite safety, Reed Blankenship, is going to be the odd man out there. I like Blankenship as a depth piece. I do not like him as a starter to build around with that defense. So I think that could be the move. Look, how he went out, and we all talk about the importance of getting dogs. We looked at the 49ers last year and 2 years ago with the defensive guys they had and how they play the game and what it's meant for them and what it's gotten to them. And now it's time for us to do the same thing. The soft stuff needs to stop, stay to the side. All right, we need to get dogs. And I think we got a lot of dogs in this draft. Trotter Jr. is another dog. To get him in the 5th round is awesome. And then, the offensive lineman that we got from Michigan, again, I'm not really that familiar with him, but he's going to be depth. That big Florida State kid that's a receiver. He ran a 4.5 40 at 6'6", 230, and he might be projected in the NFL as a tight end. But we've seen that before with certain guys where they're big receivers in college and try to translate to a tight end in the NFL. Sometimes it doesn't always work out. So we'll see, how that plays out. But I think a slept-on guy in this whole draft is the last kid that we took, Dylan McMahon. I'm not saying at all, please do not. I'm not saying he could be the next Jason Kelce. What I am saying is like Kelce was taken late in the 6th round in his draft. No one thought he'd be that good, and he ended up being an elite player. So I think Dylan McMahon could be a guy that surprises people, especially because he's in a good situation here to possibly get in games between injuries and between we don't know what, for long term, that center spot right now, what it's going to look like.
Chris, I'm glad I wanted to talk about that because I think that's the perfect situation for that kid.
Yeah.
To be brought in as an undersized center in a role in an organization where they have Jeff Stoutland, where they just turned an undersized center into the top 5 center of all time. And again, I'm not saying that they're going to do that with this kid, but if this kid's going to have the chance to maximize his potential, this is the situation and this is the franchise that he's going to be able to do it at. And I want to backtrack real quick. The cornerback room that you talked about, Seltzer, iron sharpens iron. So if James Bradbury and if Darius Slay want to prove that they're not washed yet, guess what? You bring in these 2 hungry kids. You got Keely Ringo, who should still be hungry. You got all these guys now that are fighting for time on that field for positions out there. That's a great thing in my opinion.
100%. I couldn't agree more with that. And we don't know what Cam Jurgens is going to look like at the center spot over a span of a year. If he even plays the center. They got Hennessy too for a backup. Hennessy started in this league before. So we don't know what that position is going to hold for those guys. So getting a guy like McMahon also in there for competition, like you said, Al, there ain't nothing wrong with no competition.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. But overall, I think the draft was an A.
No, I think they went out and they definitely hit some positions in need. I think the kid Hunt is going to be really the X factor in this thing in regards to how good he actually is on the defensive side of the ball. But I do want to turn some attention to the overall draft. And we did ask you guys to do a pick you loved, a pick you liked, and a pick you hated. I'll open it up. One of the picks that I love is we've sat here on this show and talked so many times about how rookie quarterbacks get left in the dust because they are not put in very good situations. Case in point is probably Bryce Young last year. That guy was thrown to the Wolves with no offensive line, no weapons at all. And one of my favorite draft picks was the Chicago Bears taking Rome Odunze, excuse my pronunciation if I didn't get it right, at the 9th overall pick. They have set Caleb Williams up to succeed by not only drafting him, but by bringing in Keenan Allen. They went on later to draft an offensive lineman to protect him. I think they're doing all the things that they need to do in order to make sure that kid succeeds. I really love that draft pick at number 9 for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I like it too. Their offense immediately it should be better. You know what I'm going to say? Caleb Williams is an immediate upgrade over what they had at quarterback for the last couple of years. But in all seriousness, no, I agree with you. Keenan Allen being there, and this kid, if he is
and DJ Moore, guess boy.
DJ Moore, Cole Kmet is a steady hand at tight end that can help the kid out as well. I like that pick a lot as well, Seltzer.
Who the hell's the running back right now? This shows how out of season I am. They have a decent running back too.
For who, the Bears?
Yeah,
DeAndre Swift.
Oh,
Matt Forte.
Anthony Thomas, the A-Train. That was DeVerse's boy.
All right, I'll go. The picks that I loved, I went with the whole team. Seltzer, your team, the Chargers. I think he had an exceptional draft. I really like Joe Alt at offensive tackle. I think he's the best offensive tackle in the draft. You know, he comes from a lineage. His dad was an offensive tackle, former first-round pick by the Chiefs. I like the kid McConkey out of Georgia to replace an aging Keenan Allen. You know, as great as Keenan Allen is, and he might be one of the most underrated wide receivers of our generation in this 10-year span, he could never stay on the field. He was unreliable as far as health is concerned. McConkey gives Herbert a target. He's a guy that can get yards after the catch. He runs good sharp routes. He makes good adjustments to the ball. So I like that they picked him up. And then I also like the fact that they took Junior Colson. You know, even though I'm not a Michigan guy, I don't like Michigan being a Penn State guy. But if you're going to bring in the coach to coach the team, who knows best how to maximize Colson on the field than the guy that just coached him at Michigan for 3 years? So Junior Colson at linebacker, I like those first 3 picks. I think the Chargers did a lot to make a leap next year.
All right, Chris.
Man, I can go so many directions here. So one pick I loved, and aside from the gene with the Eagles, we already talked about that though. But one pick I loved around the league was Xavier Worthy going to the Chiefs.
Yep.
That elite speed, putting him with Mahomes, letting that thing fly, is going to be pretty fun to watch. And they need weapons. They got Kelsey, and that's really, I mean, Mahomes has pretty much been carrying that offense. Let's see what Worthy can do. They lost, obviously, Tyreek Hill a few years back. Hasn't really ultimately, I mean, they still won rings since that, but he could definitely step right in and be that new Tyreek Hill for them. That's a pick I loved. As for a pick I liked, I really liked a couple of actually the Commanders picks, but specifically Luke McCaffrey. They got Luke McCaffrey way late, and the pedigree is there, fellas. We all know Ed McCaffrey was a stud. Christian McCaffrey is still a stud. There's nothing telling me that kid won't be a stud. I don't care what round he went in. That name carries weight to me, and those boys can play football. And I love Jaden Daniels for them too, but Luke McCaffrey, I think, was a really good pick where he got picked as far as I think it was like the 100th pick or whatever it was in the draft, relatively in the middle there. So I think that was a good pick for them. And then the pick I hated was Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that
was the low hanging fruit.
Yeah,
they just don't get it. The Falcon. I love Penix. Don't get me. That's not because I don't like him.
Right.
I don't like his situation. And now they put 2 possible really good or great players in him and Kyle Pitts in awful spots in that team. And you have Kirk Cousins, who you just signed, and you blindsided. He did not even know that was in the plan until literally like hours before the pick. His first 2 years are fully guaranteed, so it's not like he can like mentor Penix and then be out. He's there for at least 2 years, at least on the books. And this kid ain't a spring chicken. This kid is like what, 24?
Yeah.
He was an older senior, so he's not like a young kid. He's a grown man, and you're asking him to sit. And they just said the other day that the GM said that they could see him possibly sitting up to 4 or 5 years. Yeah. He'll be 29.
Let me counter just as playing devil's advocate, because I agree with what you're saying. I've always been a proponent of, though, if you think that guy is the guy, then go get him at the end of the day. So if they think Penix
Not when
is
you
the
just got a
guy,
quarterback 100 and something million.
sure, but maybe maybe that's the mistake. And down the road, they're doing the scouting, and they were like, Penix is the guy. And you know what? Maybe Cousins plays this year, Penix jumps in next year, and then you have to eat a year of that money, and then you get rid of Kirk. I'm not saying I think Penix is the guy because I'm not sure, and that's what makes the pick judgmental. All I'm saying is if you think you have a franchise quarterback sitting in front of you, I don't ever think it's wrong to take them regardless of the situation. People would have said the same thing about the Jalen Hurts pick when the Eagles picked him in round 2 a few years ago when they had Carson Wentz. So I just think if you think he's the guy, he better be the fucking guy.
Well, I think
he better be, because that situation is probably even worse than the Hurts situation. Hurts at least a second round pick. This guy was the 8th pick in the draft.
I don't think it was a good pick.
It's a risky pick by the GM because the NFL is a win now. It's a win now league. But I think if the GM is probably being real with himself and being real with Arthur Blank and the owner of that organization, there's no pick that they're going to make there that's going to all of a sudden shift the Atlanta Falcons from potential fringe playoff team to contender. So if you're going to take the quarterback there and you think he is the guy, the Green Bay Packers have just shown you with Aaron Rodgers and now with Jordan Love that sitting your guy for a couple of years isn't the worst thing in the world versus throwing him to the dogs like New England's going to be doing with Drake May and like Washington's going to be doing with Jaden Daniels and before he's ready and before he has a team around him where he can be successful. So in that sense, I don't know that I hate it as much as most people.
Well, and the difference though, Al, is Jordan Love was still young and was still a kid. Right. Penix is older. Yeah. He might even, I have to check it. He might even be older already than Jordan Love is.
I get that. I agree. I don't
even the best.
I'm also just playing a little bit of devil's advocate, but I'm just saying that I don't think it's as terrible as people are saying it is.
Even if they wanted to draft a quarterback, he still wasn't even like he was ranked at the highest, like the 6th best quarterback on the board, and they took him as the 4th quarterback.
They should have traded down. That's the big
right.
Yeah, that's the big miss.
This guy's playing. He's playing Madden. This GM, and they obviously are just more occupied and busy with trying to get more butts in the seats in Atlanta because that's an awful market for pro teams, and that's why they were in the market for Belichick until Robert Kraft allegedly called him up and told him not to do it, which is a whole other story in itself. And they had Bijan Robinson they took last year instead of taking a defensive player. Penix this year instead of taking a defensive player. And I disagree. I think if they focus on defense a little bit more, they could be a playoff team.
But they
have some weapons on offense.
No, I agree. But I'm just saying I think they're a little bit further away than just that one guy at that 8th position that would have like all of a sudden turned things around for them.
You got to start building at some point.
They just should have traded the pick back and just gotten multiple picks is what they should have done.
I'll quickly run through my other two. The guy, again, excuse my pronunciation is right. Ricky Purcell to San Francisco at the end of the 1st round. I'll be honest, I don't follow the draft a ton, but I watched Steve Smith Jr. or senior clip showing the highlights of this guy and how much he really liked him, and just seemed like a guy that would fit in with San Francisco, especially if they get rid of Ayuk. And the pick that I hated was Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix is trash. I thought he was trash at Auburn, and for him to go 12th or 13th overall to Denver, I think that screams Paxton Lynch to number.
They don't have a good history of drafting quarterbacks lately either. And I agree with you. And I think that McCarthy's overrated also.
I agree a little bit.
Yeah. My actually, guess you took my I like the Xavier Worthy pick by the Chiefs, grabbing the fastest player in combine history. Speed kills. I can add in as a the Lions grabbing Terrion Arnold at the end of the 1st round. They had the worst pass defense in the league last year. So to be able to shore up that secondary a little bit. And then they took another cornerback in the 2nd round, the kid out of Missouri, Rakestraw. They took him. Yeah. So I like what the Lions did there. My hate, I have 2 hates. Number 1, I hate New England. I hate New England not trading back out of 3. They just have so many needs. You guys know I think Drake May is going to be a bust anyway, so that's part of the hate. But if he has no one to throw to and he has really not much to protect him and nothing's really going on up in New England, I think that's a wasted pick. And then they end up taking a 2nd quarterback in the 6th round. So what do we think?
You did it took a quarterback a year early? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think they still have too many needs to take Drake May that early. So I would have traded back if I was them and plugged a few more holes in. And then I also wouldn't have taken that 2nd quarterback. My other hate is that Baltimore drafted the kid TJ Tampa and not Tampa. What are you doing, Buck?
The marketing possibilities.
Draft the kid named Tampa. Come on, man. That's
Yeah,
terrible.
I disagree with Drake May, though, man. I think Drake May is going to be a player.
I don't root against him. I don't see it. We'll see.
All right, so there's the NFL draft recap for you guys there. And again, hopefully the Eagles players make an immediate impact because we certainly need some upgrades on the defense compared to where we were at the end of last year.
Did my man Bookie get picked, by the way?
Pookie?
Bookie. Remember the guy Bookie from Bookie something or other from Mississippi State? I said it was probably the best name in the draft. Very appropriate for this time of our history right now with the gambling situations. Having a guy named Bookie in the NFL is perfect.
I don't know. I don't know if he did, but I did want to say this. I want to see if you guys are on the same page with me with this. Can we please stop the PSAs and the special people making the picks, and let's cut to Lexington, Kentucky for this pick, and let's cut to Canada for this pick? Can we please just make the friggin' picks? I get it. They got to fill the time, but Jesus, dude.
I thought you were going to say cut the PSSAs. I was going to say you're here.
This could be a hot take. I can't believe how many people show up to watch the NFL draft in person. It has to be the most boring freaking event in the world.
It's a party. It's a concert. What do you mean?
It's just I guess they do have the concert aspect, which you have to add to it. But like during the actual draft, watching like the 15 minutes between the picks, they just announce a name. To me, it's the most boring thing in the world.
Well, they got things going on there if you're there, though. It's not like you're just sitting there waiting for them to get on the stage. I mean, they have things going on. The broadcast might be boring.
I'm just shocked that there's that many people that show up.
Somebody over the weekend said that it's like Comic-Con for football guys.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Dude, it's a party. It's the NFL is king, man. Like I mean, they could have that in the middle of the desert, and it would be 200,000 people there.
If they had it back in Philly again, I would take Jackson down there. As long as I didn't have to pay for a ticket. I'm not paying to get into that.
Yeah, I don't know if they had to pay or not. I forget how that worked out.
Big shout out, by the way. Jackson, the undefeated Mariners tonight went 1-for-1 with 2 RBIs and a walk.
There you go. That boy.
The hitting streak is at 2 games.
How's his game? What's he like?
He's still finding himself a little bit. It takes him a few games to get acclimated back to baseball. It kind of messes him up too because we do baseball and golf in the same season.
Yeah.
So the swings bleed into each other. But dude, he's a sweet swinging lefty, man. He makes everything look good, and he's tall. He's the tall first baseman reaching out with that glove.
There you go.
You know that short porch at the hill for them lefties, dude.
Oh yeah, he'd hit more bombs than his dad. You know how many career home runs I had at the hill? One off of Gilman.
The buddy hit me, took me deep.
I wanted to say really quick, a quick notable for signings that happened also for the Eagles. Notable names: John Ross and Mekhi Becton getting signed.
I didn't know about Ross.
I love
Becton has not really. He's definitely underachieved, but maybe with Stoutland's tutelage, he'll come into his talent and his abilities at this level. But John Ross been at the league for a little bit now, so I don't know what happened. He retired and then he wanted to come back now, so we'll see how that comes up. But speed kills now, like you said. If he can run still, hey.
Yeah, I like Becton though because instead of drafting some like project tackle that you were going to get in the 5th round, you get a veteran that at least knows what to do out there. Maybe his body doesn't do what he wants it to do anymore, but he can at least, you can rely on him to at least have the football brain and know what he's supposed to be doing out there.
And you have professional tape on him. So you've seen him play against professional athletes where you can say, hey, we can fix X, Y, or Z and try and make this guy, again, maybe he's the backup swing tackle or something along those lines where you can get.
And that's what he'll be.
Yeah. They should have taken Olu Fashanu's mom.
Oh, yeah.
Tackle, they should have taken his mom.
That's a whole other segment in itself, that whole situation.
Absolutely. All right, but we will be back next Monday, barring a Sixers run that culminates in a Game 7 on Monday or something schedule-wise. Let's hope they perform well. Let's hope we can all be on the same page next week in the fact that we are moving on to the second round. But don't hold your breath. But until then, let's drop that beat.